Hello, everybody, and welcome to my second episode of my new channel, From Beyond the Brim. All right, so uh, as I told you, if you watch episode one, this one is going to be much shorter, so don't worry. As I said, I don't want all my videos to be 1 hour. I think that's a bit too much. I want them to be around 20 minutes each. So yeah, I guess for the first episode, I had a lot to say, but I'll try to make them a bit more specific as they go. All right, so this episode is about Bob Lazar. You may have heard his name. If you haven't, well, this video is going to inform you a bit of who he is and why I feel he's so important in, just the whole uh, UFO world or UAP or however we're going to call them, but you know what I mean. Um, so I'll give you a bit of the introduction here. As I say, how Bob Lazar changed everything. I consider him a masterful whistleblower. Why? Well, if you already know, then you know. If you don't, then I'll explain a little bit why. Let me go to the next. Okay, slide. Here it is. So, you might have heard of Area 51. If you haven't, then I'd be a bit shocked, but at the same time, I have here some information. As you can see here, Area 51 is a highly classified U.S. Air Force. Well, I don't know if it's Air Force, just the Air Force, but what we know is that it's a highly classified U.S. Air Force facility located in Nevada, okay? Where they test, like, I don't know, experimental aircraft and all the stuff, you can imagine, stealth technology, spy planes, all of that stuff. And it gained some fame in UFO lore due to alleged sightings of unidentified flying objects in the area. Okay, so a lot of people think they have spaceships or whatever you want to call them, alien technology, definitely hidden in this location, and specifically S4, which is something I personally learned because of Bob Lazar. As it says here, allegedly a separate, even more secretive facility located near Area 51, as described by Bob Lazar. He claims S4 is where reverse engineering of alien spacecraft took place, or is currently taking place, and it's housing advanced propulsion systems and extraterrestrial technologies and possibly some bodies. Okay, so this is all you know about Area 51 is actually S4 according to Bob Lazar, which is very interesting because I guess it's something we didn't know before he mentioned it. All right, so this is, as I said, this is some images. Of course, I'm not going to have real images of Area 51 or S4 as it's not allowed for regular people to go. And even if you're not a regular person, I don't think it's, well, obviously not allowed for you to take any pictures or videos. So yeah, on to the next. Let's move on. So what are some of his achievements, right? Or what I consider some of his achievements. I think he's claimed first-hand knowledge of UFOs. As he says, he alleges that he worked at that site, S4, right, near Area 51 in the late 80s, okay? So he claims he was part of this program to reverse engineer, or at least try to understand the alien technology that was being presented to them at that moment. Then he also revealed advanced UFO propulsion, how it works, right? He tries to explain a bit of how it works and how it's basically gravity-based, right? It's a gravity-based propulsion system that uses an element that he named 115, okay, which later was confirmed as a real element in 2003. So about more than 10 years later, right? I don't know how many years it will be because it was the late 80s. So I'm going to say 15 years. 15 years later, that element was publicly, recognized as a real element. So that's interesting. There are some things he mentions that definitely make sense. And I find him to be very believable when it comes to just his personality and how he speaks and how he carries himself, how he recalls whatever happened in that time, and how he also seems slightly traumatized, maybe not so slightly traumatized, by being this whistleblower in a sense, because I feel he spoke the truth, and obviously a lot of people didn't believe him, but a lot of people did, and that already made a huge difference in the secrecy regarding this topic. So as it says here, is challenge government secrecy. As I mentioned in other videos, that I won't be reading everything I write. You have the opportunity to pause the video and read and take your time if you want to read all of the information. You can always find more information online, or you can ask me in the comment section. But yeah, so I'll just kind of skim through them and give a bit of my insight. But he faced backlash, okay, for speaking out, as everyone does when regarding this topic. It is what it is, sadly. Then inspired modern UFO investigations. Yeah, he's kind of like an inspiration. He influenced researchers such as George Knapp, which I spoke about, and Jeremy Corbell, who I also spoke about in my first episode. I might speak more about them, but they keep popping up, so I don't really know if they deserve a specific, episode. But I think Bob does deserve a specific episode just because of who he is. And he remained, he maintained a consistent narrative despite the skepticism. Lazar maintained a consistent account of his experience over the decades, right? So this is something that he's kept talking about, and he never changed his story. So that's also very interesting. Why would he remain consistent with the story if it weren't true? I mean, what is he really gaining from it? I don't think he really gained anything. He doesn't seem to really enjoy fame or being in the spotlight, which is another thing that's very interesting about Bob. And any sort of information he decides to share, it's really I think he's a very, I don't know how to explain it, but I guess a very sciencey guy in a sense that he just likes to share information and data, but not necessarily, he doesn't want to cause impressions, or he doesn't want to be sensationalist in any way, or if he is, it's not his main purpose. And you can really sense that in a person as they speak and as they present themselves, or how they carry themselves, how they move through life, and remain the same decades after decades. That's something very special. And I think Bob Lazar has all of those qualities. So how I personally discovered Bob Lazar, I think like most of you guys are going to be watching this video, because unless you're, well, I don't know who's going to be watching these videos. If there's someone watching them, then thank you, But in my case, the way I discovered him, it was through Joe Rogan. I was already paying attention to Joe Rogan just because he interviewed, I think, what was his name? Graham something, the ancient civilization guy, which is also very interesting. I might make an episode on his, stuff, because I do think he's very intelligent and very, I just love how he explains his theories, right? So I was watching a lot of his stuff, and then I came across Bob Lazar, which was crazy, because I think it was like a 3-hour podcast. Joe Rogan makes really, really long episodes, but they're so interesting because it feels like you're part of that conversation. And I really like how Joe asks questions, So anyway, I was watching that episode, and I remember immediately, there's something I'm able to do, and I believe other people are able to do, but it's almost as if I can detect BS immediately, right? And when I don't detect BS within the first, 5 minutes or 10 minutes of an interview or, a podcast or whatever I'm watching, in this case, it was a podcast interview. So whenever I don't detect BS, it's just, I don't know how to explain it, but my brain turns on and I'm immediately paying attention, and it's almost as if I value every word that person says. I know that person just doesn't speak just because they're bored or they want to, whatever it is. There are many elements to how someone speaks. But when someone is very precise or very intentional, with the language they use and the information they give and how they answer a question, it just speaks so much more to who they are as a person. And then I start to obviously believe what they're saying. So as I said, in my case, I tend to believe people more than anything else, honestly. I mean, if I see it in 3D, like right in front of me, and it's quite real, I'm also going to believe it. Of course, I'm not but I also believe people. I feel like a lot of us, a lot of you, some of you tend to not believe people just because, I don't know, you've been lied to a lot. I mean, we've all been lied to a lot. People lie. That's not anything new. However, I feel like we do have a skill to detect who is lying and who isn't. Sure, they're very good liars, but at the same time, there is a purpose for a lie. If you're just lying to lie, then it's just kind of lame, and people will catch on to that, and then they'll just be like, okay, you're a compulsive liar, and no one really cares about what you have to say. But a person who's just consistent with their story, even if it's a lie, like, why this level of commitment, at his age, he doesn't have any reason. This happened only in I think his whole program situation was like 2 years. And in 2 years, compared to the rest of his life, you're like, is it really worth it, to share this secret? But I feel it speaks more to his personal, judgment, or how he, his moral compass. I think it speaks to that, the way he felt he had to share what he learned and what he saw, which, as I say, please watch the Joe Rogan interview. I will leave it in the description box next to his documentary, which I also love. And I have some clips of it at the end of this video, but if you want to watch the full 40-minute documentary, I'll leave the link too. It's not easy to find, but it is on YouTube, so I'll just leave the link. Both of these things are on YouTube, by the way. I tend to just use YouTube because it's just easier, and I've been using YouTube my whole life, so to change is always a bit of a bummer. But let's move on, you guys. Well, these were my thoughts, by the way. As usual, I have a slide for my thoughts, but I always share my thoughts on the go, because this is not scripted, by the way, you guys. I just do the presentation, but then everything I'm talking about is really just me. So then he explains how it works. So the whole system of anti-gravitational, it kind of creates its own force field that can bend space-time, because gravity can bend space-time, if you really think about it. Technically, the whole, I always use Interstellar because most people have watched Interstellar, but the whole black hole thing that can affect space-time. So time runs much slower if you're near a certain level of gravity than in another planet on another part of the universe. Essentially, that's actually true. All right, the same way a black hole can actually absorb light, and it can bend space-time, because space and time is actually the same thing. I know it's a kind of a weird concept, and if you want me to dive into that a little bit more, I can. I'm not necessarily a super science. I love science, don't get me wrong, but I'm not, I know scientific people, all right, love numbers and formula and really specific data, and I'm not necessarily into that. I do respect it, and I do like to learn, and I do love to hear from professionals, but I am not that. That's not necessarily where I am going to move around. That's not my, I mean, it is my cup of tea, but it's not the my favorite tea, so to say. So yeah, he does talk about that. That's why I want you to really watch his original documentary, and also the Joe Rogan interview, because he really goes into detail, and it comes to show that he is a professional, whether you believe him or not. He knows what he's talking about, and I feel like the way he explained it really made sense. And I really liked it because he started talking about two types of gravity, which I think I have here. Just give me a second. Here, yeah, I have a little summary, you guys, but as I said, watch the original. Here I'm just giving you a little bit of a summary, but there's a type A gravity, okay, that's used by the alien craft, okay? This refers to gravity waves emitted directly by a mass, such as those produced by the core of the alien spacecraft Lazar worked on, technically, okay? This is a manipulated, amplified gravitational force which allows the craft to bend space-time, which was what I was saying before, enabling faster than light travel and movement without traditional propulsion. So these things kind of fall into place, okay? Because they're playing with gravity. That's why they're basically floating, you know? That's why they don't make sound or any sort of noise, and that's why they can move at, you know, light speed in many faster than light. And if you know a bit about, as I said, basic science, you know that if you move faster than light, you're basically time traveling, okay? Because you're moving faster than time itself, okay? Therefore, these things are also kind of like time traveling machines, and also like really, really fast vehicles. Okay, so that's why I say it becomes a very strange thing. A lot of people believe that this, you know, these things might come from us in the future. Maybe, I don't know, in a million years we, you know, evolve into these gray beings, and this is how we move around the universe. I mean, it could be. I think that's a valid theory. I don't know if that's my favorite theory to believe, but they may come from the future. Just I don't think they're necessarily us. You know, I think every civilization is in a different part of the future, maybe. But it's so complicated, because then what's the present and what's the future? Because for them that's the present, but for us that's kind of the future, because their technology is so advanced. But maybe it's the same time. I don't know. You know, it's just a bit complicated. I believe a bit confusing and a huge paradox. But at the same time, if you care about how these machines work, or these craft, or whatever they are, you know, vehicles, flying saucers, you know, spaceship. So yeah, we have type A, and then we have type B, which is celestial gravity, which is the standard gravitational field of celestial bodies like Earth, the Moon, and that's the most ambient gravity that experience us towards massive objects. Yeah, okay. So there are two types of gravity: the one we know, and then the one they use, which they create themselves. Okay. I also in the documentary, if you actually watch it, he also talks about the gravity of, I call it the gravity of things, but I guess it's like the glue that keeps solid objects in our 3D world solid, right? If I have an apple, all the atoms and all the things that make the apple are kind of glued together for a reason, and that's the gravity that can be manipulated. And I think that the fact that they can manipulate that gravity means, explains in a way how they can walk through doors, you know, or pull you from your house to their ship, you know, and everybody feels like I was literally floating out of my house, right? All of that stuff. But your body is there. I really don't know if your body stays, or they actually take your body, or they take your astral body, and that's just good enough. I have a lot of questions because I've never been abducted, and I would love to interview someone who has. So if you have been, please write in the comment section, because I really want to know all the details. I have so many questions about abductions, because I'm trying to, you know, join the dots. That's all I do here. I try to join the dots, and the more information I have from people, then the better, you know. As long as you're not lying, you guys. I don't want lies, please. But anyway. On to the next. It's already 20 minutes. So, as I said, practical use UFO propulsion. Alien craft supposed to use type A gravity to warp space-time. So this is basically the same thing I said. These explanations from Lazar are a cornerstone of his claims about reverse engineering alien propulsion systems at S4. So essentially a bit more of what I just explained. Feel free to pause if you want to read a bit more, but I'll move on to the next slide. All right, so this is my favorite part, so to say. So in 1989, well, there were two parts to this, right? But in 1989, he came forward in an interview, which is really famous, with George Knapp, who I mentioned in the other video, and he's kind of like hidden, under the pseudonym Dennis, okay, and his face is covered or obscured. And he starts talking about all these things I've been mentioning in the video, okay, claiming that there is a program for reverse engineering, that they select like the top, most, I don't want to say geniuses, but kind of geniuses, like people who are definitely talented in in technology, or in just, because I really don't know what he was, which is interesting. Give me a second, because I'm gonna check exactly what he was.